vlog today. We are starting a brand new painting because if you were here for my previous video, we went through a bit of a roller coaster and a little bit of a rough patch because I started a massive painting and it didn't work out. And if you want to know the process on that, beginning with me prepping and making the panel to where I decided to call it quits, I'll link it above. Like I said, we are moving on to another painting today and I'm going to go back to basics. I feel like I'm always reinventing myself, which is a good thing and it's great to experiment, but for right now with the stage in art school, I'm at my last year. I'm only have 4 weeks left. So I just need to be making paintings that I know I can make. I know that they're going to be successful, and then for the rest of my artistic career I can experiment and play as much as I want. But right now we gotta crack out some paintings, so let's get into making another fairly decent sized painting.
Alright, we're starting off with some amazing camera quality. Sorry guys, I forgot to wipe the lens of my camera. But here is the panel that we're working with. Again, like I said, quite large size. But when I zoom in, I can see that there's tiny little cracks that are forming with the gesso. Don't really know how that happened, but I just went over with some white paint to sort of patch that up and hopefully it will be okay. And of course, we're starting off with a neon green base. I do say later in the video how I wish I went a little bit more green, but c'est la vie, the green base is done. And now we're going ahead and sketching it in. And as I said before, I was talking about going back to basics, and it also meant going back to what I love, which is faces. It is portraiture. And so here I'm going with a little bit of a risky composition, but also a composition that I love, which is a really up close face. Like I just want to paint faces, I just want to paint flesh. That is what we're doing. We're treating ourselves today. So I'm using just acrylic base for this underpainting on a panel that I've made. If you're curious on how I made the panel and primed it, my last video talks all about that and has all the instructions in the description if you are curious. I did not buy a pre-made panel this size. That would be crazy expensive, and for me personally, this is a great way to have an archival surface while also having the quality. So you can see now the form starting to take place. I've just used a Payne's gray to sketch it in, and now we're mixing up with some neon pink, a real neon acrylic paint. The green isn't technically neon. I just mix it with some cool yellow and phthalo green, and it has a pretty neon effect. And I absolutely love this point where I have the pink and green color combinations. I actually love this duo. And as you can see, we cut to me having added a lot of acrylic texture, a lot of drips. I'm using this paint scraper to add textures that a paintbrush can't produce. I want more variety in this acrylic base for those textures to exist. So I use the paint scraper, a lot of drips like I said, but also incorporating my favorite tool, which is the paint roller that you've seen me use before. It very quickly and easily adds a really, really awesome texture. And now I'm going in with some white acrylic paint, which is opaque. And this is my major downfall last video, where I just refused for some reason to add opaque paint in areas other than the face. So this is me forcing myself to add some opacity and also some textures. I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I'm adding some textures with my finger, because this acrylic stage for me is just a way to just let go, because the other parts of my painting process are very detail oriented and tight, and so this is a chance for me to just have paint be paint. I also just turned the panel around so that the drips, as I splatter it on, is going to go in the same direction that I want the action to go in.
Alright, it is the next day and this is what I got done so far yesterday. And it's looking a lot. It is a lot, but the point of my acrylic bases is to almost create too much stuff, because then I can then layer over that with the oil and tone it back. And so it's kind of a process of the more that I add with the oil, the more that I'm taking away. I think it's quite an interesting process. The plan that I have, which may change at any point, is to kind of have this side of the face be a lot and use a lot of layering and have a lot of this acrylic sort of gory stuff here come through. And I like the effect that layering oil on top of acrylic, it's still having the acrylic seep through a little bit, because the oil has a different sheen to it. It's a little bit more shiny, it's a little more glossy, whereas acrylic it's a little bit more plasticky and matte. A little more evident in maybe this painting. Basically this part here is acrylic, this stuff is acrylic, all this is acrylic, and it has a slightly different depth. I don't know if you can notice between the oil, but even here with this acrylic coming through, it's just got a different effect, and there is more depth because there's different sheens to it. Anyway, that's what I plan to do over here on this one. You know, have this sort of plasticky acrylic base through. I layer on top of it with oil, and then there becomes this depth in terms of sheen. And I think there's just a lot more to look at when I do that. So that's what I'm playing around with. It's looking very grotesque, oh my goodness. But that's sort of the ironic thing about this painting, is that it's a little humorous because you've got this insanely grotesque, gory, obviously painful experience, but then, you know, she's like smiling and there's gonna be like a little heart on the band-aid, you know, kind of carrying on this motif from this painting. We have quite a controlling and not as grotesque as that. She's obviously in pain. She doesn't look too good. But then you've got this like sickly sweet heart to sort of contrast that, and it's a union of opposites in a way. Anyway, that's the plan. So let's get into it.
Alright, so here we go sketching in the eye, and now I'm going over with oils because it's been around a day for the acrylic base to dry, so it should be pretty safe to start using oils now. And I'm just blocking in some of the key features like the nostrils and the eyes. I'm still sketching and I'm still making sure that all of my proportions are correct, especially when it comes to this mouth area. I'm taking my sweet time with these teeth because if you've ever painted teeth or looked at paintings of teeth, if something is slightly off, it's super obvious. It's just we're so familiar with teeth, and it can totally change the way that we look at a painting. And with these teeth being a focal point in this painting, I have to make sure that they are correct and in proportion. So I took my time with that and then moved over to this eye. And I just wanted to quickly talk about the way that I'm holding my brush and the way that I'm applying paint. I want to be a little bit more gestural in some areas, but also very refined in others. So I'm holding my paintbrush back and sort of carving out these shapes, and up close there's just these big bold shapes of colors, and boom, you have an eye. And it was quite easy to do as well. And so I just went in and started refining some of the darker areas. I got like a really dark bluey magenta, having that reflected light of the skin onto the eye is important to communicate as well. I also haven't put in the pupil here because I did want her to look distant, and with the other eye being patched up with the band-aid, I thought that it could show a bit of relationship between the two eyes. And there I was concerned about blocking the camera with my head, and I was. So sorry about that, guys. I do that a lot in this video. Here I'm setting up the camera, making sure that it doesn't happen again, but of course it does, and my head starts to block the camera as well, and I'm really sorry about that, guys. Hopefully you can still see around my big head to see what I'm doing. Now is blocking in the nose with all of these really warm, saturated colors. I want the key warm colors to be the eyes, nose, and mouth, and the rest of the skin tone be a really desaturated, cool blue tone, just to contrast with each other. I've done this unnaturalistic skin tone in the previous painting, and I'm just recreating that in this painting here. So I block in the shadow parts of the nose, and you can see me transition from the warm shadows underneath the nose to the rest of the skin tone that's going to be more blue. And that transition from warm tones to cool tones is really hard because I want to keep the saturation, but I also need to be able to blend it. But I think later it's gonna be a lot softer, and hopefully I'll make it work. But I'm working now to the tip of the nose where I've added a lot more pink, a lot more specifically permanent rose, but also desaturated it as well because the highlights are less saturated than the shadows. And after that was locked in, I quickly put down a first layer of the rest of the face. Sorry I didn't film the process on that one, but I will go in with a second layer and just render all of that out. And also put down a first layer for the teeth. I was super nervous that I had got the sketch wrong, but it actually turned out okay.
Okay, so it is currently holidays at school now, and I was here yesterday, and I just come back from a weekend away in Melbourne. I went to a wedding, and so much fun, but I'm still kind of catching up on sleep. But I was here all day yesterday putting down a base layer for this painting because honestly this yellow, I wish it was more green, first of all. Second of all, I feel like I'm fighting with it a little bit whenever I lay down paint because the yellow is so bright. I have to do more layers than I usually do. So this eye actually took me like 3 layers, and usually I maximum do 2. So instead of working section by section and not being able to see the full picture until I'm done, I decided to block all of it in yesterday and then go in once it's completely dry to do a second layer, just so I'm able to see the full picture now and then make adjustments. What was I going to say? Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I'm starting a new painting. Okay, so yesterday, my lovely friend and I took photos of each other. So she came up to me and she was like, Saskia, can I take like a photo of you? And I was like, only if I can take a photo of you because I need more models. So yesterday we spent all morning taking photos of each other, and I have some really good references that I am going to make into a painting. So I'm actually going to start that today just because I've just painted this yesterday and it's still wet and I really want it to be fully dry before I do the next layer. How am I going for time? It's funny how bad I am going for time. Yet I'm still sitting here procrastinating. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and start a new painting.
Alright, after giving that a quick final sand, I went in with, of course, my neon green paint. I went a lot more green this time just because I didn't want the same mistake I made last time, because as this paint dries, strangely, it goes more yellow, so I had to kind of overcompensate just to make sure that it really is green. And by far this is my favorite green tone that I've ever made, and I'm definitely going to have to keep that in mind for my other paintings. But now I'm quickly roughing in a sketch, and I was quite happy. I had gotten the sketch down pretty quickly and it was really fun, and it seems to be in proportion, so I was really happy about that. Again, this is just the acrylic painting stage, so I'm using acrylic paint here, and again a desaturated greeny Payne's gray to sketch in all the proportions. And I was loving the way that I've painted the shadows. It's very simply painted and very blocky, but I just love just how simple it looks, and I was getting really excited about this painting. And as you can see, it is full bodies, and I know last time I did full bodies it didn't really work out. I know I keep talking about the previous painting, but it's really affected me. And just because I just went from doing an up close portrait and now we're doing full bodies again, it's like, can I handle this again? But as you'll see later in the video, I am pretty positive about how this painting is going to turn out. And as you can see, these are full bodies. So if you're sensitive to boobs and stuff, then click off. I'm not going to be rendering the breast in this video. I don't want no sensitive to boobie babies watching my videos anyway, so just putting that out there now. Close your eyes if you want. Clothes make such a statement. If clothes are not relevant to the piece, then don't have them, you know what I mean? So let's talk a little bit about what is actually happening in this painting. So we have two figures, and it's done by the same model, my friend, but I'm going to make them look like different people. So they're two different people, and I've transported them, you could say, into this sort of wastelandy forest, but it's not going to be like a fully rendered forest. It's really just going to have that paint roller texture that I have in the background, just because I don't really love painting environments. I'm all about the people. Sound like a president. It's just gonna look like a bunch of painted mush. So that's where I'm kind of placing them, and the front figure is kind of holding back the figure behind her to sort of check out the audience. Like, she's like sussing out the audience and like wondering what they're doing here. Or that's kind of how I interpret it, but it can be interpreted however you want. But I start to render out these hands, and I really wanted these hands to have emotion to it because the scene is quite ambiguous and I want her hands to look quite tense. So hopefully that comes across. And of course I gave her a little pink nose because I'm obsessed with this neon pink and green. So I got this acrylic base done, but I didn't want to call it a day. I really want to stay and keep working. So I broke a rule: close your eyes if you are an iCarnival buff, but I did start painting with oils on top of the acrylic, even though the acrylic hadn't dried for a very long time. So it hurt me too, but I really just wanted to keep working because I really got to use the most of my time. And I changed the colors a little bit in these hands. I wanted them to be like warm in the joints, but then really cool toned in the rest of the hand. I don't know why, like I said, I really love those warm and cool color combinations, and I try and use them whenever I can.
Okay, it is currently Saturday the 5th of October, and I need to get this video by Sunday, tomorrow. So I'm in the studio today. I just want to get more of this painting done for you guys because I've been like one half painting and then another like not even half painting done is, I don't know, I think a weird way to end the video. So I'm gonna try and get more of this done so you can see the potential of it. I just checked this painting down here and it's still wet. So the plan was to get more of this painting done also. So I'm gonna have to leave that for the next video.
And here we go. Like I was saying before, I just wanted to get a little bit more of this painting done so that this video ends a little smoother. But it's pretty much the same color combination, so warmer ends of the fingers and then slowly becomes a little bit cooler down the hand. I just love the expression of this hand and I really wanted to capture that, but unfortunately I ran out of storage, and so I just cut to it having been completed. But you saw the process on the previous hand, so hopefully you get a sense of my process already. And then we're moving upwards up the body, and I blocked in this arm, and I loved painting this arm, guys. You can really see what I mean by carving here. So what I personally like to do is add the mid-tone and then work that way up the arm, and I'm carving in those mid-tones, so the way my brush goes is the way that the arm goes, and then I'm layering the highlights on top of that mid-tone, and then I'm layering more highlights on top of that. So there's this layering effect that creates these transition shades that I don't really have to blend that much, and I just love that process. Hopefully I'm explaining it well enough through this voiceover, but if you have any questions, please just ask away down below. Okay, so I'm gonna have to wrap up today's session and the video because I'm gonna get kicked out in a second now because my uni is closing. I'm okay with the amount of work that I got done. I was really forceful myself to keep going and keep painting. The thing that took me the longest, you can't really see at all because this other painting is blocking it, is the hand for the front figure. That hand took me about 4 hours to do, which was majority of the time. So I roughed in the rest of the body, just wanted to key in some areas. That is pretty much what I have left for this video. I plan on making more videos and posting more because I'll have a lot of content to show for the next few weeks because I'm going to be in here painting hopefully every day, the days that I don't have work specifically. I'm really excited about these paintings overall. I think they're going to be a really cool duo, and I think they're going to work with the rest of the work that I'm going to be submitting. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next video. Bye!